and it's Fred Van Lente, everyone.
Where?
Hello.
Oh, Leo. I'm sorry. Leo, I should have mentioned Fred has imposter syndrome. So at any point,
I do.
It might appear like it's not exactly Fred, but it totally is. He gets Fred Van Lente a lot and then Fred Van Venti, but Starbucks had to talk to him about that one.
My neighbor had to get me this sign just to prove I am who I say I am. So that has helped with the imposter syndrome quite a bit.
There you go. See, so everybody, our guest, writer, normally we do an intro, Fred. So I'm just going to, our guest right here, amazing Spider-Man, incredible Hercules, X-Men Noir. Other
things.
Marvel Zombies. Thank you. A lot of other things that I can't mention right now. The one, the only, Fred Van Lente.
Hey. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Last page of land.
Thank you. Well, and like I said, we're glad you could come on. No worries and everything. So glad you're here, Fred. And
glad to be here.
And then you're like, hey, I'll be there in 30 minutes. I'm like, that's fine. We're just shooting the breeze. There's always things to talk about in comics.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, let's. We were just talking about. This was released today. Did you have a chance to see this?
I have not seen that. Is that going? Is it a?
Is a still from the movie? Yeah, that's him and Crypto.
Have an AI that is generating image, or is this an actual?
Yeah, this is James Gunn released. Yeah, James Gunn released this image today, and apparently the dog is based on his dog, which was a rescue. Or Crypto's based on in the book, or sorry, the movie.
Well, I guess Crypto would literally be a rescue dog, right? That would be.
It's true. It would be
rescue dog. So.
Same thing with him and Streaky. They're both rescue animals. So
Streaky is Supergirl's cat.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we're not going to talk about anything like that weird space unicorn. We're not talking about that because don't go there. Right. Back. So, Fred. So first things first, I just want to say, again, I've met you once or twice at the con and at New York Comic Con, and I just want to say your work is absolutely fantastic. And the one of the books that I tell people about all the time has to be Incredible Hercules.
That is what sort of made me that book. So yeah.
I mean, you and Greg Pak, and then a smattering of collaborators you had. That book, I mean, as a fan of mythology, I just loved what you guys did. I mean, Greg was writing Incredible Hulk, so he set up Hercules and Amadeus Cho. And then you guys just took it and ran. And it was just, every issue was fantastic.
Thank you.
And it just always killed me because you guys just wrote Hercules like such a lovable idiot. And it was just absolutely hilarious how much Amadeus Cho would have to bail him out. And I'm just like, oh my
God. But in many ways, Amadeus was even more impulsive than Hercules was, right? That's sort of why they were a team, is they kind of each was the saucer to each other's cup, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you guys just run him through such gauntlets, and it's funny because I recommended to a few people, and I had this one friend who I showed it to her, and she was like, "I want to read all of it," and I gave her all of it. I had all the issues, and she's like, "This was amazing." I was like, "I don't know, I like, gosh." So I just wanted to say I've loved, Marvel Zombies, all the ones you did, X-Men Noir, all your work on Spider-Man, amazing. But this is top notch, man.
Yeah, no, it's a really very special book, and I didn't really know anything about the Marvel Hercules. Like I had bought, so a fun trivia fact is the first ever Marvel miniseries was this book Bob Layton did called Hercules Prince of Power.
Mm-hmm.
About Hercules in space. So I knew that Hercules, but I didn't really know anything about the Marvel Hercules beyond that. So I just, being the sort of person I am, I started reading like Euripides, right? So like my impressions of Hercules came from like the old Greek tragedies. That's where a lot of it came from.
I mean, it was just like I said, and it's Leo. I remember when we were talking about this, setting this up. You were really excited to read this. So, like, as a first timer, what did you think, buddy?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It's definitely was a lot more lightheaded than not lightheaded, lighthearted than we've been reading lately. So it was definitely enjoyable. But I do have to say though, just flip it a coin. I've never read Marvel Zombies before, and I read 1 and 3 this week.
Okay.
And oh my god, I absolutely love it. You know, it's extremely fucked up, but it's yeah. I mean, definitely your take on it. You know, bringing the virus back to the main universe, and yeah, it definitely messed up, but very enjoyable.
So I have to ask Fred, because Marvel Zombies 3, you know, it was very different. You know, so the first two were just Kirkman and Phillips. You know, they were just going through that story, and then you get it, and you're like, we're gonna, you know, and then you. It was just a beautiful tribute to horror, and you used the best character for it. I mean, you used the robot from Next Wave, which was kind of like the series, and we've read it. And just to let you know, Fred, we read it, and the first thing Leo said when he came on the show, because I recommended it, was like, Drew, what the fuck? And I was like, I didn't write it. That was Warren Ellis wrote it. Like Aaron is just fantastic. So you put him in there, and like how did that, like, did you pitch the idea to them, like Machine Man, Marvel Zombies? Like, how did that come up?
So one of the greatest filmmakers of our, you know, of existence was this guy Akira Kurosawa. Right. And he did a very famous movie, I think it was 1980, called Ron, which is clear, but set in samurai times, right? So it's set in medieval Japan. There's massive battles. And so somebody asked him, there's a very famous shot in Ron with these samurai armies amassing on their horses.
Okay.
And so somebody asked Akira Kurosawa, how'd you come up with the idea for that shot? He said, well, if I'd placed the camera slightly to the left, you would have seen the airport next to the field we were shooting. If I put the camera slightly to the right, you would have seen the Sony factory that was directly right where I was shooting. So a lot of these answers to these kinds of questions, the answer is it's necessity. So Marvel, in their infinite wisdom, decided this is... So one of the things you have to keep in mind about Marvel Zombies 1 and 2 is they sold like hotcakes.
Right.
But I came on at Marvel Zombies 3 right when the Disney sale was starting. So Marvel loved to send me on suicide missions. Incredible Hercules was absolutely a suicide mission. And I started to annoy them eventually because I kept coming back. You know, they're like, right. What the fuck? Why? If someone wants to send you a suicide missions because they don't want you to come back, but I kept coming back, you know. And in fact, Marvel Zombies 3 is, without a doubt, according to my bank account, my most successful comic of all time. So people really love that book. And it really is very heartening because they came to me and they said, okay, you can't use Wolverine, you can't use Spider-Man, you can't use Hulk. We won't give you anything that could be made a movie out of.
Right.
Because the top brass was simultaneously pulled by the fact Marvel Zombies made so much money. But they were terrified a Disney board member's kid would be like, why is Spider-Man eating Aunt May's face in this panel? So they were like, you can't use any characters anyone has ever heard of before.
Right.
And I'm a huge Jack Kirby fan. And I think his Machine Man, which is essentially the last thing he did for Marvel.
Right.
It originated, as many people know, in 2001. The Stanley Kubrick adaptation that Kirby did.
Right.
And so it was tough because the first 8 issues of Machine Man, the original series from the 70s, was just Jack Kirby writing and drawing.
Right.
And then the last few issues were drawn by Steve Ditko and were edited by a guy named Ralph Macchio.
Right.
Now, Ralph Macchio edited something called the Ultimates line.
Yes, he did.
Which you may have heard of before. And the Ultimates line is, and the Marvel Zombies, as many of you may also know, is a spin-off of the Ultimates line because they first appeared in Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Yes,
so Ralph Macchio was the editor of Marvel Zombies and simultaneously the world's biggest Machine Man fan, and he fucking hated Next Wave. He fucking hated it, like with just the burn of 110,000 suns.
Right.
So I had to get up to Ralph Macchio and he'd be like, "Hey man, here's what we're with Marvel Zombies 3." Because I read Next Wave and I fucking loved it. So
right.
I was in a difficult position. So I was like, "Hey man, we're gonna make Machine Man a hero again."
Right.
He's not just going to be, let's be honest. I mean, I enjoy Next Wave, but Warren Ellis just wrote Machine. It was Bender, right? I think we all know that, right? Next Wave is Bender. Like Warren Ellis saw Futurama and wrote Machine Man like Bender.
He totally did.
It's not a bad choice. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying Ralph Macchio, who loves Machine Man, was we will not use the Next Wave Machine Man. I'm like, but what if, Ralph? Just hear me out. What if we transitioned Machine Man from the Next Wave incarnation to some of the heroic role? And I talked him into it. So,
oh yeah, good job. You know, no, it was fantastic, and then no, I mean Fred, it was fantastic, and then
I like how you're showing the entire comic.
Yeah, that's Leo's move. He'll just
it's not pirating, you guys. It's not.
Yeah. You know, it's just like he'll do that. You're just talking and you're just like, oh, hey, that moment. I love that there. There was just really good humor in it. And that's just the thing I loved is just literally the things you did with Aaron were just fantastic. And now you're right. He is the Marvel. He was being the Marvel Bender because all he just talked about is getting paid, beer, and I guess banging Jocasta, So I was like, that's basically Bender, But then, like,
I just wanted to say real quick, his one line when he just goes to the zombie universe, and you're thinking that this is the worst place you can go, and he's like, "You think this is bad? This is robot heaven." I absolutely love that. It was hilarious.
Right. He gets paid to kill fleshy.
I do think that's sort of the appeal of the zombie genre to a certain degree, which is those kinds of antisocial tendencies. Oh, I got to shoot my neighbor. Cool. I hated that fucking guy.
Right?
Like there's a lot of it's almost all successful fantasy genres are some kind of pent up human need that can exercise itself.
Yes.
Elsewhere,
Oh yeah, and you saw Aaron do that when he had that moment where he was like, "All right, that's it. I'm gonna be a hero," and all of these undead fucks.
Yeah, that's the moment. That's how I sold Ralph on letting me use Machine Man because he was totally dead set against it.
Right.
But I think he ended up really coming around.
Absolutely. And was there, okay, I have to ask, was there anything that you wanted to do that either Ralph was like, no, or you're just like, I have to cut this. Like, I like this, but it doesn't fit, or like,
not that I can remember. I mean, Marvel Zombies 3 works so well because it's kind of got a very simple idea, which is that you have the reluctant hero who gets kind of sucked in to this situation because the woman he loves is doing it, and so he feels compelled to do it because he has to protect her, and ends up kind of identifying with the people he's trying to save, and so he ends up the reluctant hero becomes the real hero, right? Which is a beloved trope in all kinds of fiction, So I think that's why it works ultimately.
Yeah, and then
also.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was also I haven't read 2, but compared to 1, it's a more intricate story as well. Like 1,
Sure.
it's like, hey, we're zombies. Why are we zombies? We're just going to eat everything. We're hungry. We're not hungry. It's all about them.
Yeah,
Just
I mean the nihilism is the big appeal of that one and 2, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Especially more in 2, I would
Yeah.
say. Mhm.
Really?
No, yeah, 2 gets really Leo. You have to remember, by the end of 1, they're the new Galactus. So
Yep.
by 2, they've basically eaten most of the universe.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so you have the nihilism. Like, okay, where do we go from here? So, but fun fact, Fred kind of answered that. Check out Marvel Zombies Return, everyone.
True.
But then,
for some reason, I did Marvel Zombies 3 and Marvel Zombies 4, and the brass were like, "Yeah, you can have Spider-Man and everybody again." All right.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. You had a death in that one that sat with me. How you in Return, one of the villains that saw the Marvel Zombies show up, he did something to one of the Earth's heroes that has sat with me for a long time.
Sandman.
Yes, that
Drawn, I feel like I had to say, by the brilliant Nick Dragotta, current artist on Absolute Batman. If you're Absolute Batman,
we were just singing his praise, him and Scott Snyder, because we've all read it and it's just fantastic.
I have one Nick Dragotta page on my wall. I'll take it down for you here real quick.
Yes,
this is my
we love
one
seeing
DC story. This is a black and white a Martian. You see Martian Manhunter's head. This is my only DC story that Nick and I did for the holiday special in 2009. So you see that's
wow, that's awesome.
Murder of a you see there's a Christmas tree, right?
Yeah.
Lot, right, where they're selling stuff. Anyway.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Nick's a great
That's
dude.
Awesome.
Anyway, Nick did the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
We were just earlier we were talking about Absolute Batman, and his artwork is friggin' amazing.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and then 3 set up kind of your chapter of the Marvel Zombies, because 3 leads to 4, and 4 is the reunification of a group that Carrie is a big fan of, the Midnight Suns. Carrie's, and then I'm
slightly different than
and then you kind of set up Headpool, because you showed Deadpool, you pulverized him,
right,
and then later on he shows up in that series with Victor Grishler where it's Deadpool and Headpool, and they also end up so you kind of
I was mildly annoyed Marvel gave the Headpool series to somebody who was not me and never bothered to ask me if I should do it. They just
That's not very nice.
Well, Carrie, you'll find if you work for Marvel,
I might have heard a couple of things here and there.
Sorry if I'm,
Oh no, it's fine, Fred.
Carrie on this podcast, but
it's all good. You can listen. You can say whatever you want. You can curse. We don't care. Whatever, buddy.
But I'm in the credits to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Nice. I was going to ask.
Nice.
So my name is next to Alex Toth's because of where it belongs. Oh, because of the alphabet. Sorry. Do you guys know why Alex Toth's name is in the credits of Deadpool and Wolverine? What character's first appearance did he draw? We do sometimes fun trivia here on Splash Pages.
Oh, apparently we do. Oh boy.
What Deadpool and Wolverine character did Alex Toth finish Jack Kirby's pencils over?
God damn it.
X-Men 19.
Okay.
Anyone?
Gambit?
I'm drawing a blank, Fred. I'm sorry.
1964, I want to say.
Okay.
Nobody stops the
Juggernaut.
Yes, correct.
Oh.
Juggernaut. Alex
Got it.
With Jack Kirby, the first appearance, Juggernaut, and Juggernaut is in Deadpool and Wolverine. You know,
Nice.
we don't
I
try
have to
entertain
apologize.
here at Splash Pages. We also educate.
We do.
It's
I have to apologize. My knowledge is more along the horror comics lines. I do some of the superhero things. I do, but I'm just I was born on Halloween. It's not my fault.
Can I pitch my horror comic to you?
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you questions afterwards too.
So it's out this week. Well, it's out last week. It's from Mad
Okay.
Cave. It's
Awesome
called
already.
It's called Murder Kingdom. It's a slasher set in an amusement park in Florida.
Okay.
That's fairy tale themed. I don't think there is one of those right now. This is totally fictional. And someone is killing the employees of this amusement park based on the original gory fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen. The art's by Chris Ponda. It's a fantastic. The amazing covers are by Paulina Gashino of Powerpuff Girls fame and other terrific comics. And so I strongly suggest, if you like horror comics and or fairy tales and or murder, pick up Murder Kingdom, #1 in stores now.
That sounds right.
I definitely will.
Yeah,
I think we actually did that on the news when it was first announced, because that sounds really familiar. So I think we've promoted it for you. It's just been since it was first announced to when it's now been released. And now I get to type to my LCS real quick when I'm done here and say, could you please add this to my polls? Thank you very much.
Namaste.
And now I need to know, this is something I've been asking. I've been collecting data. There's some people aren't sure whether or not it exists or not. We've had some straight up denials. We've had some stuff. Do you happen to belong to the super secret horror comic writers Tiki Club?
Oh, God.
So I'm not. And I will say this, and I hope this will not deny me membership for all time. I'm not a tiki drink kind of guy. I have a very limited sweet tooth. Like I can't handle like I like booze, but not when it's combined with sugar. So I don't know if I'd want to do it. Right. Is that a horrible thing to say? We have a lovely bar in my neighborhood, Zombie Hut. Excuse me. It's called Zombie Hut. And their specialties are gold, like the Mai Tais, right? The foam and the blue and the vapor.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place, but it's just not my thing. But that's amazing. It sounds like that's more of a West Coast thing.
No, see, everybody denies it, but they all have it's a strange thing. Jason Aaron is into tiki. He's an EC when they just restarted. Brian Azzarello collects tiki mugs. He doesn't actually drink tiki drinks though. He drinks craft beer, so you could get away with that as long as you had a tiki mug of some sort around you. But he denies it exists at all.
That's a wide demographic there. Fair enough.
Yeah, and Colin Bunn, who's down in the Missouri, he also I'm up in Nebraska, so he's in the Ozarks down there, and
I was just in South Dakota until Sunday.
Well, was that for is it I forgot was it the Sioux City Con, I think?
No,
or was you just there for randomly?
I went to an InfoSec conference in Deadwood called the Wild
Used
West.
To fish there.
Oh yeah,
nice.
It was lovely. Anyway, I do comics. Well, I'll come back on the show in May when the comic is out, and we'll talk about it.
Sweet.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So you're not part of the Tiki Club, but you could be maybe. I'm working. Jason Aaron told me that he couldn't tell me anything more about it until I became a horror comic writer. So I've got the script going. I got to figure out who to send it to.
Carrie, just make a comic. You're a comics writer. This is, it's not like this. This is a big tent. Yeah. We want everyone. Come in.
Yes, I'm already a published author with some other things. It's just changing it to. Oh, Ratatosker appreciates that. He doesn't get very much acknowledgement, so it's just trying to change the format around. Because is that something that I like to ask all the different writers. When you write, do you write differently for every artist, or do you have a specific way that you write your scripts? Depending on material.
That's a great question. I mean. The short answer is no. I mean, a better answer is it's just hard to say because every that's something people say about comics all the time is you're right to the artist's strengths and stuff, but I just feel like every project's so unique you can't like just today I'm working on this project. So New York Comic Con here in the city technically it starts on Thursday. For the rest of it, it started basically yesterday. And so I had a I don't know if this story will mean anything to anybody, but anyway, so so I'm working on a project for the hacker people that was at Deadwood for, and so I had a breakfast meeting. When's the last time you did a breakfast meeting? 8:30 breakfast meeting. I had to get on the fucking subway at 7. It was rough. So, but I'm working with this guy, and so it's weird because he's a different country, and so there's a language barrier. But I thought he was a really young cat, and then I'm talking to I had the breakfast meeting with his boss today, the head of the studio, and actually he's a really old cat, like closer to my age, and it just blew my mind. I was like, you draw like a young person, so that's a very rambling way to say I don't write to the artist, but I want to have communication with the artist. And so this is an odd project, partially because this person is Italian and doesn't really speak English. There's this weird like language barrier. But the bottom line is, and I'm sure you guys have seen, people talk about this in social media, is that the artist is a co-author. The artist is a co-collaborator. The artist is your equal. So ultimately, you write to the artist because you say like, hey, if you have any questions, you want to change anything. Like my attitude about my scripts is, you can change whatever you want as long as it's better than it went down on the page. If I don't think it's better, let you know. I'm not going to keep it to myself. But yeah, so like I feel like people say that when like, are you writing for Bernie Wrightson or David Mazzucchelli? Like, well, I slit my own throat to work for those people. One of them is dead. Bernie gave me a cigarette in London. We were at the same con together.
Whoa! That's I'm speaking of. I'm working with a project with one of my collaborators. We're doing a small film as a tribute to Bernie.
Lovely dude.
Yeah, and I helped put it together. I was listening to everyone's because my friend interviewed creators who knew him, and they're just talking about him, and he just sounds like the nicest guy in the world. Like just
the sweetest guy. I was hanging out with him outside on a cafe in London. We were both at the same London con, and his wife is there. And
okay,
I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah,
for 10 years, and so I finally weaned myself early. But it was a horrible bummer for 10 years. I can't believe more people didn't punch me in the face. But he's very cool. Yeah.
When the film's up, I'll send you the link so you could.
Yeah, no, he is a great dude. I love Swamp Thing. My favorite thing he did was his Frankenstein illustration.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Very lived Marvel illustrated line.
When I was working on the project, I told our resident horror instructor, Miss Sanders over there, and I remember I was like, "Oh yeah," no. She looked it up and she was like, "Wow, I'm like, "Yeah, I know, man. They're gorgeous." Like you know, he spent years doing that, and it shows, man. Yeah, but
I did spend an appropriate amount of time admiring it as I went through it too. It was like
that's great.
It was like she was doing a research paper.
Slight break.
Oh yeah, do your thing. No rush. Take
3
your
minutes.
I'll be right Take your time. No rush, Fred. Thank you.
Right back.
No rush. Do your thing.
Total derailment with the Tiki Club again.
God damn. Yeah, I was about to say, like I swear to God,
I keep changing the order of the naming of it too.
You know what? I'm making. You know what? I'm gonna have Jenny. I'm going to reach out to Jenny. I'm going to have her make a Splash Pages bingo card, and I'm just going to have it. And you guys say these things. I'm going to cross it off. And when we hit, I'm like, bingo.
Get Out and Next are definitely on your list.
You bring up the Tiki Club.
Where are Snakes going to be?
Snakes. And then, no, Blue
Leo's
Sky. Leo's dad. No, Blue Sky. That's also one. You know,
first editions.
First edition.
If you've gotten more than one, if you have to get at least
the free
5.
space is Drew lying down. That's like he's gonna do it every show. And now, because I've been exercising more, I might not.
Ooh.
And we can have when Jar Jar shows off one of his toys or randomly pulls something magical out of the air.
Yep.
And when he sings something better than the rest of us that we all started with. Hi.
We're just talking about doing a show bingo.
Okay.
Because we always just say the same things over and over. So eventually we want to have our people watching. We'll send it to them randomly, and I don't know. We'll see if someone actually gets 4 in a row.
Or we can start a drinking game and then send people to the hospital.
No, Leo. We already have a name for that. That's called Smashed Pages.
Okay? He did it. He's part of it. I knew it.
Gary.
Evidence.
Gary, after the show, man, you gotta keep calm with this conspiracy theory tiki shit. Breathe. Breathe. Back to the books. Another thing, Fred, that we read was your work on X-Men Noir with Dennis Calero.
Sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the first book, right, in that series, or was that Spider-Man?
No, Spider-Man was the first. So we had pitched. So Marvel's first, Timely's first book was called Marvel Mystery Comics. So
right.
And the characters that premiered Marvel Mystery Comics #1 were Submariner, Namor, the original Human Torch, and this character Angel, who was this sort of mustachioed detective.
Right.
So we had pitched the idea of doing and so our pitch to Marvel was, we'll do a murder mystery and then the readers can write in, and it was sort of interactive, right? So can the readers solve the mystery, right? And there'd be some reward at the end or whatever. But they'd already accepted the Spider-Man Noir pitch.
Okay.
And so they were like, well, could you do that? And I guess because Angel, right, ends up being an X-Men character.
Right.
They're like, you do it, but do it as a Noir thing. And so my editor, Nate Cosby, was like, well, why don't we do X-Men, but with no powers? Which I thought was sort of an interesting concept. And he was also like, he also got very obsessed with X-Men Noir. If you ever notice, there's no hyphen in the X-Men. He's like,
yeah.
Oh. I'm like, all right, I don't know what this is. Sure, we won't have a hyphen in X-Men. Great.
Right.
And it was super fun. It was a really fun series. It sold out a bunch of times. We got to do a sequel. It was a fun book.
Yeah.
I had occasion to reread it recently. I was like, this isn't bad.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. Like, especially because, like you said, in that world, there really aren't a lot of superpowers. I mean, Spider-Man Noir is one of the few, and yours, they're, the X-Men are criminals because their Professor X thinks, criminality is some sort of evolution. And then on top of it, they're again, your idea of the Brotherhood is Magneto and his crew, but they're cops, and I was like, good Lord, this is great. And then Dennis Calero,
and Dennis's art sort of perfect for this.
Oh, 100%, like just noir to a T. I mean, I remember him doing work with Peter David on X Factor back in the day, and then this, I was like, wow, this really fits. And then you guys came back for was it Mark of Cain, right?
Yeah, I actually kind of like Mark of Cain a little bit more.
So
the original.
The funny thing is, I feel like the Marvel Noir kind of, like, I think the only thing like that kind of went on was Spider-Man. The rest of you guys, and you had X-Men, Spider-Man, Luke Cage.
Well, I mean, X-Men and Spider-Man both had second series. I mean, obviously, and then Nick Cage plays Spider-Man Noir in the Spider-Verse movies. So that was sort of a big plus for them there. I think ultimately, because they didn't have powers, it was a little less attractive to the larger zeitgeist. But I think the comics are super fun. They really hold up well.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I think Iron Man Noir, that was Scott Snyder. That was one of his few.
Yeah, Scott wrote me to ask for advice when that first came out, and I
Right.
first script and stuff. It was
Did you save those emails? You're like, oh yeah, I was helping Scott Snyder before he was Batman. You know.
Well, in the sense I didn't delete them; they're sitting in my Gmail.
No, yeah, I remember reading that. I was like, wow, this is really good because I didn't remember Scott doing a lot of Marvel. And then, like in my library, Iron Man Noir, Scott Snyder. I was like, okay, like I missed this one.
I think that might have been his first professional comics work.
Yeah, it was something like that. Because I remember, because that was big, and then he did American Vampire, you know, and that was really big because Stephen King was involved, and you know that helped put him further. And then, of course, when he did Batman for the New 52, then everything was over. That was, you know, boom. And then you also did work on a bunch of Spider-Man, right?
I did. I was the last web head to be hired, and I did a bunch of Spider. I did Web of Spider-Man for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man was my guy. That was a real bucket list thing. It was very exciting to get to do Spider-Man. But I did so much Spider-Man, I never want to touch Spider-Man again. It was too much Spider-Man. I was like, enough with the Spider-Man.
This is because and help me remember, because I think I own these issues. You did a story that had like, you kind of like reinvented the Chameleon a little bit.
That was me. That was my. That's the first one I pitched. It ended up not being the first one I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
It still ended up being the first one that got published. And Barry Kitson did the art on that. He's a lovely dude.
Oh yeah, but I just remember that, and I was just like, oh god, like again, like it was Leo and Carrie in the story. You find that the Chameleon, who's, you know, the Spider-Man villain who can change his face and whatnot, he kidnaps his victims, and he basically holds them hostage, and he takes like a day in their life where he's them and he's setting things in motion, and then later on he like correct me, Fred, if I'm wrong, he dissolves his victims in acid so there's no trace, and then he's just like, oh okay.
Yeah. So you would slightly out of order. He dissolves them in acid and then takes over their lives because they don't exist.
Right.
And yeah. So what I was a fan of the pocket books reprints. I'm a 70s kid. I know I'm probably older than most people on this call. And so my parents got me the 70s pocketbook reprints of the original Steve Ditko run of Spider-Man. And Chameleon first appears in Amazing Spider-Man #1. Right. And what I loved about it was he has no powers in Spider-Man #1. He's just some guy who's a master disguise. And I thought, what would be cool would be, can we get a guy with no powers? And ultimately in the 80s and 90s, they gave him, he took some super soldier serum or whatever, and he could change, which is boring to me. Which much more interesting is he kidnaps people, sprays latex on their faces to kill them, and now he has a mask of their faces. He pulls the face off the corpse, dissolves the corpse in acid, and then goes out and it becomes that person.
Right.
And wants to become a better person than that person was. And so he does that to Peter Parker. Obviously, Peter Parker has done many comics since 2009, so we know Chameleon did not kill him. But how that happens is a fun story.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing is, because you did because kind of in the vein of Hercules, you did the first issue of they did like a Deadpool 900 series, and then they did the issues backward.
They did the Deadpool team up,
yeah, and then you had Deadpool teaming up with Hercules, right?
Right. That was at Axel Alonso's request. That was the editor of the book.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, because I just remember thinking, I was like, wow, this is Wade, and again, and that was the first one after issue 900. So, like, again, like you said, was that another one of your, I hate to say it, your suicide missions? Were like, he can't do it. It's like, no, I got it. Give me a second.
No, it's a great question. I think that it was more like, so, I mean, Marvel's kind of a snake pit of all these different like editors fighting for turf.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was because of the guy who at the time was in charge was this guy, Ike Perlmutter, who, as you
Right.
may know, is a big Trumper and was going to be Trump's Secretary of Veterans Affairs and is a real piece of shit. Sorry, can I say that on the
Yeah,
on the air? Anyway,
thing.
so the problem is when you have a piece of shit as the head of your organization, the shit kind of trickles down like water to everybody. So so it was a real toxic workplace. And at the time, I mean, I don't know, I haven't worked for Marvel since Axel was editor-in-chief. So I think he got moved out like 2018, something like that. So I haven't been there since. So I can't speak for how it was now, for how it is now. But at the time, it was a lot of like weird turf wars. And so I think that when people wanted to try something that was outside of the, accepted, parameters of success, they throw expendable guys like me at it. And
Right.
so I did keep getting sent on suicide missions, like do Marvel Zombies, but you can't have Spider-Man or Wolverine.
Right.
You do the Incredible Hulk book, but instead it stars Hercules. Oh, okay, that's sure. And so, I kept coming back. So they kept sending me out with crazier assignments. So I think that, I think your perception's totally right. I think that the Deadpool team up was something like that. But I mean, it's a team up book, so it was a different writer of book. So it was a fairly minor, risk compared to some of the other ones.
Absolutely.
But look, the bottom line is I from the time I was like 8 years old, I was a huge Marvel fan. So getting to write Spider-Man and everything else I did at Marvel was a huge gift, a huge opportunity. I would not have the career I would have now without Marvels. And some of my best friends I have now are people I met at Marvel. So the bottom line is, even if the institution is shitty,
right,
the institution is nothing but the people who make up it,
Right.
And usually with a big institution like Marvel, you have dozens and dozens of people, and some of them suck and some of them don't. And I was lucky enough to be with and work with a lot of people who didn't suck. And I was very lucky, in that regard. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds pretty fair. I don't know, Carrie, guys, I feel like I'm talking like so much. Carrie, do you have any questions?
I believe Carrie had a question. I saw you raise your hand.
Oh, yeah, Carrie.
Oh, yeah. No, it's first I was going to say instead of a suicide mission, that last one sounds more like if you've ever seen the Gary Larson Far Side cartoon where the guy's at the dentist's office and they have like his mouth opened up with all these different things and they just 1 second, we want to see if this will fit too, and they're like trying to shove a tennis ball and on top of everything. It was one of those like, we've given you everything else, let's see if we can wedge this in there.
Maybe this will kill him.
But no, we've heard that a lot from and not from everyone who works at the Big Two, but we've heard from members of the Big Two that some people loved it, some people hated it. A lot of it depended on when they worked there and who they worked with, but they did enjoy getting the chance to meet a lot of the other creators, and a lot of people have gone on now, and we're really excited. I particularly am excited because I'm seeing a lot more, for some reason, independent comics seem to go with horror, and I love this. I love seeing all of the new stuff coming out with Distillery and Ghost Machine and Mad Cave. Yeah, and
now
Tiny Onion, all these companies that are coming together and like getting new imprints and stuff and coming out, and you're getting ownership again is what is wonderful. Because I'm sure that you got credit in the Deadpool Wolverine movie, but a lot of people don't get credit for anything they've done. It's like, oh, we'll just call it something else. I remember, wasn't it Howard Mackie and Javier Cesares, when they did Ghost Rider, it was like, I mean, we totally stole your design for Danny Ketch, but we're going to name him Johnny Blaze, so no, nothing. You don't get acknowledgement, you know?
It's a double-edged sword. You work for these companies, and Marvel made me, I can't think any other term for it other than comics famous, and so that's how I've been able to do everything after they fired me. So it's a weird kind of existence, right? Where at the one time, on the one hand, you have this lineage that is, when you were going through it, toxic and weird, but by the same token gives you all the good stuff that came after it. So it's here's how I look at it, which is that at a certain point, I think if you're in a creative job, and again, this is just my personal opinion, your mileage may vary, but you have to love the work, right? I was very lucky. I went to Syracuse University in the early 90s, and we got to see Douglas Adams speak. I don't know if you guys know Douglas Adams.
Wow.
Guide of the Galaxy. And so he was very famous as being a writer who hated writing. Like he had and he obviously did not produce a whole lot. He did the 3 or 4 or 5 Hitchhiker's books. He did the couple Dirk Gently books. He did some radio plays. He did some radio documentaries, and then he died relatively early, I think in his mid 40s. Yeah. And so it was fascinating hearing him talk about someone who hated writing. And as much as I admire him as I love his work, I guess that's the part I don't really relate to, because you just have to love at a certain point. So I think a lot of people become writers or any kind of artist expecting that you're going to get the love that you gave out as a reader, right? You become a writer to get the love, to receive the love you're transmitting out as a reader. And it was a very specific moment where I realized this was not a healthy way to live, and it was about Incredible Hercules, actually. And so Incredible Hercules was beloved by the internet, and so. But then we did this whole series in Incredible Hercules, and Drew, you may know the story I'm talking about. Yep. There was a bit where Amadeus and Hercules have to go rescue Zeus from hell, from Hades.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who just wrote 10 out of 10. And so I was addicted to my reviews at this point, right? Because Incredible Hercules for the first 2 years was just like, love, 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 love. And I was just like, fucking put it in my vein, right? They were like, it was just addictive, right?
Right.
And about this point, this one guy, I can't remember the name of the comic site, I don't think it exists anymore. He just completely turned on us. He was like, this is shit. You guys suck. I hate this. And the whole crux of his review was that Paul Cornell and Leonard Kirk's Captain Britain and MI13 was being canceled, but our series was continuing. So his whole review was basically a rant about how this other book he liked was being canceled. And so I did the dumbest thing. I did one of the stupidest things I ever did in my career. And so he was like, I don't give so he wrote, the review was like, I don't think these people give a shit about their comic anymore. And they're just, and clearly the MI13 people care, and these people don't. And so I wrote this guy, and I was like, it's not true. We love you, and we love the book, And he's like, oh, I was pissed off and I wrote that. And I was like, oh, shit. And I sort of realized that, and I looked back at his other reviews, and what you realize is, and this is sort of the disturbing thing, is neither the good reviews nor the bad reviews make any sense, right? You read I've read many good reviews where I'm like, did you read the same book that I did? Like, you're making no fucking sense at all. And what you realize is it's all surface, right? I mean, before I became a professional writer, I went to English graduate school, and where we were being taught how to be English teachers, right? And so this was like 1990, I want to say 1994. And they had this fascinating statistic to me in 1994 that said, studies show people only retain about 60% of what they read. Like on average, we're talking dumb people, smart people, everybody. The other 40%, they just make it up, you know? So what I tell my students, I teach a lot of comics, is the four of us on this call have all seen a movie that everybody we know loves.
Yes.
And we're like, that's the biggest fucking piece of shit I've ever seen. What are you fucking talking about? And all four of us on this call love a movie, a comic, a book, whatever it is, that everybody else is like, you're insane. What are you talking about? That's a piece of shit. Like, shut up. I love it. I will throw no abuse of insert title here, you know, and I think that's the 60-40 rule is that it all comes down to your experience of the art, right? It's your personal experience. And sometimes we get the 60 and sometimes we get the 40, you know?
Right.
I teach comics. I ask people what are your influences. You could all name the top 5. It's Watchmen, Mouse, Dragon Ball Z. We could all do it One Piece. It's all the same 10 comics that everyone in the world has read.
Right.
This is a Spanish company I work for, so I get a lot of students from Brazil and Italy and just all over the world. And it's all the same, you know. I think when we all get into this job, we all want to be in that top 10. We all want to be Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns or Mouse or Long Halloween is another thing people say I love. It's a book I can't stand, but many people love Long Halloween. And you know what? I'm a teacher. I have to accept everyone, you know.
Right.
Even if Tim Sale's art is great, but the rest of it I can do without. Anyway, the point being, we're all on our own journeys in this planet, my friends. And, you know, you may have had a question at some point, but I clearly have.
No.
And I had my pub trivia.
You're answering it.
No, Fred.
Sorry,
that was a beautiful train of thought, man. So it's just, you know, no, it really was.
In the middle of nowhere.
No, because you're saying it's about preferences, and you know you're allowed. Everybody's allowed their preferences.
Exactly.
But you don't have a right to look at somebody. Oh, your opinion's wrong.
100%.
You would just have to be like, you know, it's like I always jokingly say, if someone's like, I'm like, listen, that's just your opinion, and I will respect it, even though it's wrong. You know, it's the joking, but at the same time, you know, you see that on the internet. You see people that they'll just spend hours just crapping on.
Like
something.
literally today, like literally 3 hours ago, a very good buddy of mine, he was like, you know, and we're big movie buffs, and he was like, you know, I took my wife to see Werner Herzog's Nosferatu. And I nearly stabbed him to death. I was like, all right. Adults, we're both adults. You can have totally wrong opinions, and I can still like you.
Right. So exactly, you know. No, that's exactly my point. And I like speaking for myself, and I'm fairly sure of these guys, is that I remember I saw something Kevin Smith was talking about. He was like, you know, he was talking about before his stroke, he could list these movies he didn't like and whatnot. But after he had his stroke and he had his breakdown and he built himself back up, he was talking about like, I don't want to spend that time talking about things I'm not a fan of. I want to spend the time talking about these things I love.
Totally
And I saw that and I was like, you know what? That is a really great way, because just like everything, even things you don't like, there's probably something in it that you do. Like, I'm not the greatest fan of Twilight, but I can admit I love the soundtracks because they're all, you know, early 2000 emo alternative things. I'm like, oh, great, these are amazing.
But I think that even like Twilight, there's no point in wasting your time. This is the part that I'm trying to nail home is you're not going to waste your time convincing people not to like Twilight. Like, who cares? Like, you know, if people like it, let them like. Who cares? Let them like it. It's not a problem. Like, let people have joy.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
Other people are happy. Like, doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Right.
there's also way too much negativity nowadays. It's just, and 90% of it is just, people looking to,
Start a fight.
Views or clicks or whatever. It's just,
or they're children and they just want to go with, oh, it's my way or the highway. I was like, listen, that works for the monkey bars, but we're adults. Like, you can't always, I mean, listen, if somebody wants to duke it out at the monkey bars, I mean, it's been a long time, but I'm tall now, so I can reach them. So, hey.
Yeah. I think that the sign of strength is allowing that which is not you to exist, right? Like, I just think that, like, if it's the old joke, and I do think it's true, is the guys with the littlest dicks have the biggest guns. It's just that simple. It is
Right.
If you are secure in yourself, you don't, it's from the Tao Te Ching, right?
Right.
And I'm gonna fuck it up, but it's to control others requires power. To control yourself requires strength. I think is ultimately what I'm kind of talking about here.
That sounds right.
I think I fucked up at least one word in that quote, but regardless, it's 3,000 years old. It's really great.
You did good.
But more to the point, I just think that there, just when you get old, it's like I'm not going to waste my time making other. That's sort of what's sad about a lot of our current political climate is it's just a lot of people spending a lot of energy trying to get other people to live the way they want to. They want them to want to live, and it's just
right.
it's like why you're not helping yourself. You do realize that, right? You trying to get rid of these books in the library doesn't help you at all, or your kids, or whatever in your fantasy you think that you're
right.
supporting.
And
we've come to a great compromise here on this show, because I really detest a number of popular actors, and I don't go into why exactly, but they're in some movies, and I will, in some cases, give the movies a chance, and I've liked them, but sometimes it's just like, oh no, he's going to be spending too much time in that movie. I'm just going to pass by, but go ahead and enjoy it. And they aren't like, you're a horrible person because you dislike this person. We joke about it a little bit, but we let it go.
But
we're able to
just
let it go.
Gary, if you forgive me for reformulating that, you don't just like that
yes.
person. You just like the look of that person, right? It's not like you don't know that person. It's the image of them, right?
It's right. Well, it's not based on like a political. It's not based on a political thing. Anything like that. It's based upon all of the things that I've seen them in to date, as well as the types of behavior that they exhibit and their acting quality. It's one of those things where most of the time that I watch them, I am not amused. I am not into that kind of type of that. I'm not into them as a human being or their acting abilities.
I'm deeply fascinated. You have to give me at least one name.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
Nicolas Cage.
But I did watch Renfield, and
you did,
and I gave it a good review.
Fred, you have to understand. I showed her clips of Nick Cage as Ghost Rider, and she's a huge Ghost Rider fan, and she had that look like Brando and The Godfather. She's just watching these clips, and he's that, look how they massacred my boy. Like, she's
I've used
dying.
That. Carrie, I've never seen the Ghost Rider movies because Nicolas Cage is in them, and I will totally support you in that choice.
Yeah,
I'm pro Carrie on the Ghost Rider shit. Sorry.
He and I were at Terrificon 2 years ago, and it was like when I got to interview Howard Mackey and talk to Javier Sotellers, and he's like, I showed him the movies, and they're like, why would you do that to her? You're a horrible human being. Their faces were as bad as mine.
Yeah, they were just
I will tell the story and then I will bounce. This is solely for Carrie from the horror comedy thing.
Go for it.
So favorite. So there was a Treasury edition, a Marvel Treasury edition. If you guys know what that is, it's the big ass fucking comic.
Yeah.
And so it was called Spectacular Spider-Man, but it was really a bunch of Marvel team up stories.
Okay.
And one of the team up stories was I remember this because I told the story to, of all people, Darwin Cook.
Wow.
Rest his soul, who was on a panel with me, and he really appreciated it. So
Amazing.
as I'm telling the story, I was like, maybe I should tell the story more. So there's this Ghost Rider villain called the Orb.
Yes.
Right? It would have an eye helmet. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so he first appeared in a Marvel team up issue.
Right.
Where it's Ghost Rider Spider-Man. And Mike Klug, who's known mostly for doing Man-Thing, which is my own favorite. Great artist. So at one point, Orb takes his eye helmet off his head. And his face, as drawn by Mike Klug, is just fucking horror show of gloopiness. And I, as an 8-year-old, just completely freaked out about this. But there was a Spider-Man X-Men story I love. There's a Spider-Man werewolf story that I love, Werewolf by Night. And I forget what the other one was. But anyway, so I love this comic, but this fucking panel just fucking made me shit my pants every time I looked at it. So what did I do as an 8-year-old? I had some black construction paper. So I cut out, this is a big splash panel, lower right-hand corner of the page. So I cut out the black construction paper and I taped it over the reveal panel of the Orb taking his helmet off. And I'm like, problem solved.
Hey.
There you go.
But so anyway, Carrie, I thought you liked that as a horror comics example. I mean, it's not 100% horror comics. It's Spider-Man Ghost Rider.
Thank you. That
scared me so much. I did cut out. I just censor my own comic with black construction paper and tape. And
I appreciate that from you. That is wonderful.
Fred, thank you. That was fantastic. What a way to end. Thank you so much for coming on. We really
appreciate I apologize for my lateness.
Oh no listen, you're welcome back anytime. So as we're wrapping up and then you got to go, do you mind maybe just mentioning anything you're working on, and then what's the best way that people can reach you, like social media or things,
So if you can spell my name, Fred Van Lente, I'm on the X.com and the Blue Sky and the Facebook, and it's my Gmail address. It's also my website, fredvanlente.com. And please, guys, if you like fairy tales, amusement parks, and murder, please pick up Murder Kingdom #1, out right now from Mad Cave Studios, from me. Chris Bonda, and great letters by Becca Carey.
Okay, sweet.
Awesome. And one question we always ask everybody is, well, two questions actually before you go. One, are you going to be at any cons recently? You mentioned New York Comic Con you're going to be at. Is that correct?
Yes, and that starts 2 days after we're taping this, and then I'm going to be at Grand Rapids Comic Con in November, and for you Argentinians on the call, I will be at Buenos Aires Comic Con the first weekend in December.
Okay, nice. Awesome. Well, safe travels.
Oh, totally.
And it's only a 23-hour flight. How bad could it be?
Hey.
And besides writing, what is something that you enjoy? What do you do in your downtime?
I am a baseball obsessive, and I spend far too much time with baseball, TV, and radio. My Mets are currently about to play the Dodgers in Game 3 of the National League Championship Series tomorrow. So
another Mets fan.
That goes. But I think the Yankees are beatable this year. We'll see how that goes. I think that either the Dodgers or Mets will beat the Yankees in the World Series. We'll see.
We'll see. I mean,
I'm from Cleveland, and I wish the Guardians have more of a fight against the Yankees, but they're getting their asses kicked right now. It's 3-0 when I left the bar. It is currently 4-2. All right, they scored some runs. All right.
All right. Well, Fred, the only reason I'm asking, my father's a Mets fan, and he's also happens to be a Rangers, a Jets, and a Giants fan. And every year I tell him, he's like, "This is gonna be a year," and I'm like, "Sure, Dad. May the odds be in your favor."
I mean, it's look, I'm more confident than I was in 2015, but it's baseball. Who knows?
Who knows? We'll see. But but again, Fred, thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome back anytime. So we'll
Thanks,
keep
guys.
an
You guys
eye
are awesome.
and thank you so much. And also, if there's any links, if you have any Kickstarters or anything that you want to promote, just send our way. We'll make sure to promote them. We're talking to the guy who he had a play on that was funded through a Kickstarter. Ain't that right, King Kirby? So
That's right. And currently it's in audio form from the original cast. If you go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it's free.
Mhm.
It's
Sweet.
Just search King Kirby. It's the original 2014 cast. It's a play about Jack Kirby. People seem to like it. Go check it out.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Fred, and you have a good rest of the night. All right.
You too. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Leo. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, and Fred, there's a Leave Studio button on the bottom. If you click that and go to Uploads, we record everybody's audio and video separately. So when you click that, it should prompt you for an Uploads, and just let it sit there until it's done.
I understand.
And
Awesome.
and if you have any problems, Fred, just email me and I can send you a backup.
We can send you a link afterwards if there's any issues.
You guys have so many problems, though. They have nothing to do with that.
No.
Help me with my lower back.
One thing at a time.
I'm just going to add to them and start texting you, and you're just going to be like, "Oh my God, I asked her a question. I gave her an opening, and now she's inundating me."
You open the door.
You all take care.
All right, thanks, Fred.
Have a good night.
Open up.
There we go.
Yep.
All right. That
Okay.
was fantastic.
Yes, Tom Dog, I do hate your Nick Cage impression. I hate it a lot. And you do it just to piss me off. So that's part of why I hate it.
And Tom Dog, from one person who does an occasional Nick Cage impression to Carrie, and she hates it. That's high praise.
Hey, so